After an unfortunate loss for the Kansas City Chiefs, you already know the sky is falling, the world is ending, and we are in complete panic mode for the Kansas City Chiefs. We're going to discuss if that's a real thing or if this is just a little bump in the road. But before we get into all of that, please be sure to subscribe to the channel and like this video, as I'm going to keep you up to date on anything Kansas City Chief related that you do not want to miss out on. Without further ado, let's have some fun. In today's video, I'm going to focus on 3 things that I really think helped Kansas City struggle throughout this game and why they came out of Indy with an L. You could focus on the whole game. You could say the whole team was a disaster. But we're going to zone in on 3 things. And one of them, I'm going to have a spoiler, is not Chris Jones. But before we get into that, I do got some news. It's the news we have all been waiting for. It is Matt Amendola. He is no longer a Kansas City Chief. His time with the Chiefs was short-lived, but long enough. Before I do go in on him, which I'm not going to go too much in on him, I do want to praise him because not a lot of us have done that, because we all have a short-term memory, and the NFL is what have you done for me lately, and we all have this game stuck in our heads, and I will get to that, but he did what he needed to do against the Chargers. Yes, I know. We're congratulating him on his job for making extra points and field goals. But against the Chargers, they were crucial. He came in clutch for our home opener, and I am grateful for that. We came out with a huge win, and that's what you ask for an emergency kicker. But at the end of the day, he was a one-hit wonder, and that's all that was left to be said. He struggled very, very bad against the Colts. He struggled so much that this Chiefs coaching staff didn't even believe in him before halftime, where they're calling plays we're not used to seeing this team call. Trick plays, fake field goals, that's not Kansas City. They don't want to have Tommy Townsend out there throwing passes. At least I hope not. Like usually when it's 4th and short, they bring in the boy, the GOAT, Mahomes himself getting those yards, which we're going to get into that later too. But to be put in situations like that just to not trust your kicking game, yeah, it's short-lived, but at the end of the day, Bucker, I am hoping for a speedy recovery. That means the Kansas City Chiefs, we don't know what their kicking situation is going to look like moving forward. Tomorrow's Tuesday, their first day of kind of walkthrough practices, so I can't imagine they're going to have another kicking battle. Maybe bring in Rodrigo Blankenship. I know he didn't have the best career with the Colts, but he also had some good kicks there too, so maybe this could be a redeeming point for him. I don't know many kickers out there. That's why just cross your fingers and hope Bucker comes back sooner than later. And it's funny, I saw a tweet out there which it was like accurate. People were like, the Kansas City Chiefs didn't show they missed Tyreek Hill today. They showed they missed Harrison Bucker, and he was the biggest point of this team. And it's very true. We all sleep on special teams, but at the end of the day, special teams was why Kansas City lost this game, and we're going to get into that too. Well, one of the reasons they lost this game, but Harrison Bucker just proved that he is a huge asset on this team. So let's get into these 3 things. Let me just stop all this yammering. And for my first thing out of the 3 things, we might as well stay in the kicking game, right? Because that was the eyesore from the get-go. And it's just not kicking in specific. We're going to go into special teams because Dave Toub, I do not know what them boys were doing this week in practice, if they were not practicing or what was going on. We all know Dave Toub is one of the best, if not best, special teams coordinators out there. So to have his special teams crew basically not in sync whatsoever is unlike this that we rarely ever see. So it was very unfortunate. The only guy who looked like he was really good, and you don't really want to see him out there, is Tommy Townsend. But at the end of the day, it was going downhill quick from the get-go when the Chiefs defense held a 3-and-out and Sky Moore went out there to field the punt. Again, I know there's a lot of people like, why is Sky Moore out there? Why can't we just put Hardman out there? We're going to have to pump the brakes on a lot of this, and this is going to hit people in a lot of weird ways, because is that something Hardman excels at? Yes. Is he the best one on the team to do it? Yes. But at the end of the day, this could be his last year with the Kansas City Chiefs. So Kansas City is going to try to evaluate him the best they can on the offensive side of the ball. So you got to kind of treat this year kind of like the same way Tyreek Hill was being more used in the offensive scheme, and then they had Hardman come in. Wasn't even Hardman. I forgot what the first in line was, but let's just say it was Hardman. Whoever it was, they had taking punt and kickoff returns, and you didn't see Hill back there no more. That's what they're trying to do with Hardman. Now, yes, it's up for debate if Hardman is a legit receiver or if he's a gadget player. That's not what I'm getting at right now. What I'm getting at is the Kansas City Chiefs are going to try to find his full value and evaluate him fully as a player, specifically with his last year as the Kansas City Chiefs, or if they need to extend him this offseason. They're going to see what he can provide for this offense. So that's why he is not returning punts. And that's why your next man in line is Sky Moore, and it was Trent McDuffie, Isaiah Pacheco. At the end of the day, they're all rookies. They will all have their up and downs. And it's just unfortunate. Sky Moore had it down. And then he had another one, too, where you can see he was a little timid and he didn't want to go after that punt. And I noticed, too, in prior games, I know Sky Moore has very big hands. It's what we all praise. He's just got to learn, step into it. Just let it, bam, let it come in here. He tends to grab the ball out here. And that's how he muffed that punt, too. And I saw it in previous games. I want to say it was against the Cardinals where he did it. I was like, ooh. But it also showed how good of a hands he has, too. But then it shows where it can backfire. And it's just something you got to watch. But this is the kind of up and downs we talked about throughout that we would see throughout the season. And it just happened. Special teams got hit heavy. And then I don't need to focus on it too much because we already talked about it. But the kicking game was atrocious. That's why Matt Amendola is no longer our emergency kicker. I don't know how we move forward with this. Hopefully Bucker maybe gets some practice. But even if he gets some practice, I expect it to be in limited capacity, which means I don't expect him to play. So we just got to see how that goes moving forward, too. The name I mentioned was Rodrigo Blankenship. I know he's not the greatest kicker, but at the end of the day, I think he's better than Amendola. He's proven he can make kicks. He's proven he has a good range, too. The consistency, I don't know. But at the end of the day, when you give someone a second chance, sometimes they tend to fight for it. Again, you can say the same thing about Matt Amendola. It didn't work out well. He had one good game, but then he was like, oh, that's all I got for y'all. So we'll see what that is like moving forward. And then another thing I wanted to focus on special teams was the kickoff returns. We all praise the grown man himself, but he struggled heavily, and I don't think it was focused on enough. He basically took every kickoff out of the end zone, and I don't think one of them made it to the 25-yard line. I think two of them made it to the 15, and one made it to the 20. That's inexcusable, specifically when you got a great quarterback like Mahomes, and you're basically backing him up every drive. Field position is such a huge turn of events in the NFL, and when you have very bad field position, no matter who your quarterback is, it's hard to come back from that. So I definitely see it being a point of emphasis in this week's of practice of fielding a punt, and also if it's in the end zone, let's take a knee. Let's start off at the 25, because at the end of the day, it's not working. Do I see that happening? I don't know. A rookie has it in his mind where, and definitely when he's not seeing the field often, I would love to see him more in the running back room and out there, but at the end of the day, his majority of his snaps are going to come off kickoff returns, and if he doesn't see the ball often, I get it. It's like, I want to make a play and show him I deserve to be on the field. I get it, but at the end of the day, do not cost your team, and at the end of the day, this was my biggest factor in this game was special teams is atrocious. I think it was something we haven't seen in a long time, if ever, under the Dave Tobe era. Man, this next thing was just flat out unfortunate to see. And I know the Indianapolis Colts have a good stout defense. I know they got a good run-stuffing defense. But at the end of the day, the way this O-line performed yesterday was abysmal. It was terrible. They didn't do, they looked like the old O-line, and none of these guys were even on this line. First off, Orlando Brown Jr., you allowed 7 hurries in one game. That's ridiculous. You looked like you was on skates half of the game. You were falling down over yourself, but you were falling down over Jody Fortson's foot. But at the end of the day, his play was you want top dollar left tackle money. I'm not talking top 5. We all know that. He wants to reset the market and break the bank. You're really hurting yourself, and you should have took the contract this offseason. You got to basically bounce back from this, I'm going to say terrible start to the season, because he hasn't looked good in my eyes, and I've been trying to piggyback off stats, piggyback off PFF, all this stuff that I've been seeing. But visually, what my eyes are showing me on the screen is Orlando Brown has been average at best at left tackle, definitely in the passing game. And then you go through the line too, which is sad to see is I think it was basically Creed Humphrey and Andrew Wiley who were our best linemen yesterday. And we're talking about Andrew Wiley, who we have question marks at right tackle, who we don't even designate as our number 1 right tackle, who we would give it to Lucas Niang. Andrew Wiley has been doing his thing and stepping up, and I think he deserves all the kudos. Did he have the best game yesterday? No, he did not. but he did show like a lot of room for, not room for improvement, but improvement, and show that hey, he's got a high scale, and if he keeps playing, he can be a solid piece on this line too. And this line played so bad that Juju Smith-Schuster was your best run blocking player in the game. That's saying a lot. Yeah, we know Juju is really a physical receiver, but at the end of the day, if he's your best blocker, there is a huge issue there. Like a huge issue. And then a lot of fans, a lot of Chiefs Kingdom are going to go after this run game because we're just going to focus on the stats because that's the sexy thing. And when they don't appear, we go after that player. We need to stop that. I understand Clyde Edwards-Helaire had 7 carries for 0 yards and 1 touchdown, and then the running game didn't do a thing. Like I mentioned, you guys watch this line. It wasn't hard to miss because players were in the backfield often. So how do you expect who we insult very, very frequently? He's slow, he's small, he doesn't know how to find holes, which there is a video where he missed a hole completely, but at the end of the day, that's what we go after him, and the line isn't creating those holes for him. Stop. Like everything's got to equate and equal and work correctly. And it just wasn't there against the Colts, unfortunately. And it's very sad to see because this was a huge game at the end of the day when you had the Chargers losing to the Jaguars and you had the Raiders losing to the Titans. And the Broncos, I want to say lost, but they won. And we got, isn't that very unfortunate? We got the same record as a Broncos team who won 11-10 and don't look good at all. Like, Casey has really got to step up right now. And it's just unfortunate these things weren't clicking because we got a hard slate of games going forward. And this was just one in my eyes that you shouldn't drop. But all week I was just viewing it like uncomfortable and uneasy. And I know a lot of Chiefs Kingdom and a lot of Chiefs fans have been feeling better with Mahomes at quarterback too. And so am I. I'm not going into that, but I still get that uncomfortable feeling in these type of games where people project us to blow this team out where it should be no contest. In my head, that's like, why you say that? That's when we get upset. That's when we blow it. That's when everything bad happens. I still feel that way. I've talked to Chiefs fans and like, oh, I don't feel that no more. I don't know how. I don't think you've been a Chiefs fan long enough because I've been through some heartbreak and it still happens. And it's just unfortunate. But let's get into this last thing we're going to talk about. And to cap off this video, the last thing we're going to talk about and what I feel was the biggest factor on why the Kansas City Chiefs could not come out of Indianapolis with a victory, it's easy. It's coaching. And before we get into that, I know people are going to push back in the comments and be like, what about the penalties? The Mahomes face mask that wasn't called, the bullshit penalty on Jones. I get it. And yes, those would have probably potentially won us the game. I'm not even going to say potentially Kansas City would have won the game. But at the end of the day, as I mentioned all last week, is if you're a good team, you beat bad teams. And I am going to call Indianapolis bad because I watched the whole game and it was pathetic. It looked like 2 bad football teams were playing each other. It was that bad. And that should have been an easy Kansas City Chief win. And also, too, in a fighter's preference as well. For my boxing fans who watch this channel, a boxer never lets it go to the scorecard and let the judges decide. You gotta knock them out. So I'm not gonna be too upset that, yeah, we had some penalties go against us. This is a week-by-week league. Next week, we might get penalties favored for it. Well, probably not. We're playing Brady, so we can get screwed that way, too. But you know what I mean. At the end of the day, you should not let a game go down to the referee, and that's where coaching comes into play because it's just like it wasn't there, and it's very unfortunate. I don't know what we were doing. It's just like once the first 15 plays didn't work, it's like, well, what do we do from here? And then once you have that tit for tat spat with Mahomes and Bieniemy, which let's talk about that. I believe there might be something in the past where they got angry at each other. I believe this is very bottom tier. Like I really believe Mahomes like, let me throw it. Let's give our offense some life. Let's go in half feeling happy and stuff like that. And Bieniemy's like, nothing's clicking here. Let's just get to half. We get the ball. Let's get something working, and then let's just get running. I get both sides. I do completely. So, and I think they both did it as well. I don't think it was anything serious just besides a conversation, competitive juices flowing, and at the end of the day, Mahomes is out there. He wants to do something. So, of course, if you've ever been on the field, if you ever played any competitive sports, and someone tells you you can't do something, you're going to be like, well, shit, come on. Let me do it. It happens. At the end of the day, I don't think there's no feud there. But I may be overlooking it at the end of the day. But in this game specifically, I just think that's what happened. But also, too, I want to kind of zone in on Mahomes a little bit. And this might seem like I'm going after him, and I'm not, because he is an elite quarterback. He is the best quarterback in the league. But at the end of the day, what I seen in this game kind of reminded me what I seen in the Cincinnati game, and where he needs to kind of tone himself back a little bit. And it's basically, let me word my words carefully before people come after me like, oh, he said Mahomes is garbage and shit like that. Because it's far from that. It's very far from that. But when Mahomes gets frustrated, let's say that, and things aren't clicking, we all know he likes to play hero ball, and he basically tries to put the team on his back. And sometimes, if not all the time, he does not know how to get out of that. And when he doesn't, the Chiefs tend to struggle. And when they do, it's just like you see that through the whole game. And it doesn't happen a lot. But we see when Mahomes gets frustrated and emotional with the Bengals and now the Colts. It's like, come on, click out of it. Like, go throw screen passes. Go run the ball. Go find your easy checkdowns. And we saw somewhere Clyde Edwards-Helaire was open in the flat, and he just tried to sling the ball downfield, and it just wasn't there. That's just one little thing I want him to correct and work on, because if he does, if he can tone down his emotions and be like, we're still in this, we still got a game, let's execute. Now, I'm not going to say it happens all the time, because we saw that beautiful playoff run where they were down a lot, and he was able to tone it in, get locked in, and go. But as of late, those last two games, like I said, this is what have you done for me lately, league. And those two games are right now fresh on my head. Is that championship game and this Colts game is where you see him get a little flustered, and it's like, okay, let me try to get us back in it and doing too much when he doesn't have to be. He can be a great quarterback even from behind. He's proved it a lot, and I just like to see him work on that a little more. Again, I know you guys are going to be like, why are you going in on him? I'm not. Even elite players have things to work on. That's something I noticed. As for coaching, it's just like I think all phases besides the defense. Spagnuolo called a perfect game, and actually he's been called a perfect season so far. The Cardinals game, he literally only gave up 7 points before it was basically garbage time points. Against a high-powered, prolific Chargers team, we held them in check. And then in this game as well, again, until it was too late, they gave up a touchdown, but that's just what momentum does. You can have the best defense. When you're not supposed to win a game, you will not win a game. Spags has coached his ass off this year. He had 5 sacks in this game. He had very beautiful schemes. Defensive players have been in and out throughout this year, and he still has been able to coach his ass off and put players in the right position to win. It's weird to say that the defense has looked way better than the offense so far this year. I need to see the offense start clicking. I don't know if it's the enemy. I don't know if it's Reed. I don't know if it's not these new pieces meshing in yet together. That's another thing we got to factor into this is this whole new receiving core, weapons, whatever you want to call it, it's new. And like I mentioned, people have been saying, let's get Odell Beckham Jr. Guys, like really, every new receiver we bring in, you could bring in T.O. in his prime, Randy Moss in his prime. I might be talking out of my ass right now, but it takes a while to learn this system. We haven't had anyone just come in here and put up 100 yards game one. A lot of us want to see Sky Moore in there. I'm with you. But I also understand that Reed just does not put anyone in right away. Hopefully he sees more snaps, because at the end of the day, we don't have a lot of wide receivers that can beat man coverage, if not just one. I think it's Juju. He can do it. Of course, Travis can do it. But then you got your two speedsters and MVS and McCole, where you just might as well put him in the slot, go route, and hope for the best. I think Sky Moore can. We've seen his releases in camp. We've seen his releases in preseason. I think he can beat man coverage. I say just give the kid a chance. But me knowing the system, me knowing Andy Reid, we're getting into October, so we're getting closer. But it's going to be like mid-October, early November before we see more Sky Moore. I hope things change, but you can't change history. And history is telling me Reid is going to follow the script. That's unfortunate. But maybe we'll see something new, because this game was very, very ugly. But Chiefs Kingdom, you let me know in the comments down below. What are your big takeaways against the Colts, and what are some things that caught your eye that we need to change in a hurry before this might actually become a panic mode? But before I do close this video out, please be sure to subscribe to the channel and like this video, as I'm going to keep you up to date on anything Kansas City Chief related. With that, y'all take care. Peace.